Hey, Intuitive Soul Tribe. Melissa, Intuitive Soul Coach here, excited to bring to you today's collective reading where we get a little bit of magic, a little bit of healing, and a whole lot of divine love. So welcome back to my channel if you are returning, and welcome if you are new. These are general readings. Please take what resonates and leave the rest behind. If you are interested in a personal reading or entering into the free monthly reading giveaway, you can find both of those links in the description box below. All right, so I'm really excited to share the messages with you that I've received during meditation. So I do connect with spirit prior to each reading, but specifically the collective readings, I ask, what does our Intuitive Soul Tribe or those that tune into the frequency of this channel, what messages are showing up for them? It could be messages from your future self, your higher self, your loved ones. This could be what you need to know right now. I'm not even sure what I will title this video because it's such a profound message or messages that came through during meditation. So we're just going to roll with the punches here. But as I'm shuffling, I'm going to give you what I've received. So then we'll dive into what that may mean for you and any additional messages that are coming out here. So right away, they were giving me the name. Now, it could be a name, a location, a place. Please take it as it resonates. Morris. Morris was the name. I believe it's coming across like the spelling M-O-R-R-I-S, but it could have an E. It could have, extra letters added onto it, but I was getting that energy of Morris or Morris. Please take that as it resonates. Now, I was also shown a wall being demolished. So two energies here with that. The first one, some of you may have set up walls within you emotionally, energetically. You may have put up these walls due to trauma, due to conditioning, limiting beliefs because of situations that you have been in or through in the past. And sometimes we put up these walls, and sometimes when we put up those walls, we have a hard time letting things out and letting things come in, especially when it comes to this heart chakra. And I am getting a strong heart chakra connection. So we will dive into the heart a little bit later, that heart chakra emotional center and energetic center. But I do feel some of you are either working with someone who is helping you break down your walls that you've built based on conditioning or based on pain, trauma, grief. I feel like we may dive into friendships. We may dive into how to overcome grief, how to use the imagination. And we're also going to take a look at that childlike enthusiasm, that inner child. Those are all messages that came through during the reading as well, or during the meditation. So we'll talk about that. Now, the second thing for breaking down the walls, this could be symbolic. Some of you really may be demolishing or taking down a wall in your home. It could even be getting rid of the old to make way for new. Maybe you are tearing down a structure, a foundation, physically as well. But I do feel for a lot of you, you have gone through a tower in your world at some point. I mean, that is inevitable. We'll all go through towers, many of them. But I do feel like there is a restructuring for many of you physically, and for the majority of you, it's energetically as well. So that wall was a really big thing that came through for you. Now, I also, I was smelling sandalwood or any other form. Now, specifically sandalwood is what came out, beautiful souls, but it could be sage, it could be Palo Santo, or you may have lit maybe an incense or a candle. I'm just getting the smell across maybe the home space or the office, but I'm specifically leaning towards something of healing, something of purity, and something of just clearing out the energy, making way for the old, or excuse me, getting rid of the old to make way for new. And so some of you may be using smell or, like I said, Palo Santo, sage, or sandalwood to do so. All right. And I also was sensing, because we are in retrograde, depending on when you're watching these readings, these are timeless. We may not even be in a retrograde when we're watching this, but I am sensing here that it's important to take a look at your calendar or take a look at what's on the schedule, because sometimes, as you're aware, Mercury can wreak havoc when it comes to schedules, communication, things of that nature. But I'm also getting here a slowing down of time, because they were showing me the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, and I'm just getting that energy of I'm late, or I need to show up, there's a very important event or date, right? But really, what's on the calendar? I feel like it's open. It's an open slate. It's a fresh start here. What do you want to fill in that time slot? So many of you feel like you are late to the show, but you're not even aware of what show it is that you want to see per se. And that's kind of what I felt when I was looking at that calendar or that schedule. And also, one of the biggest messages that came through, and this is very interesting, and I actually had to do my own research on this, because sometimes I receive messages that I don't fully understand. It could be like a name or a place that it could be in a different language, or I don't, in my physical body, have any clue what that means because I haven't learned it, right? And sometimes people say, well, can't you just connect? Can't you just ask spirit what that means? Yes, sometimes you can, but I'm not the all-knowing, right? I do research on my own as well. And I was actually given here, the bridge to Terabithia is, they showed me crossing this bridge and it looked like this magical wonderland. And I said, okay, where the heck am I? This isn't like my usual meditations where I do astral travel and I can remote view, and I also go to different places in space and the stars and Atlantis. So I've been to a lot of different places, but I hadn't been to this place where I was crossing this bridge. And I said, well, this is pretty amazing, but where am I? And I heard here, crossing the bridge to Terabithia. And I realized after the fact, I had to do some research, because again, I had never read the book, which I realize it's a book, but it's also a movie. And the concept behind it, I believe from my research, is, you know, a young boy dealing with friendships, dealing with loss, dealing with grief, and the should haves, the what ifs, but also listening to and becoming oneself through listening to their own intuition and opening up their own world of discovery. And in that book or that movie from my readings, he actually loses one of his best friends, and he second guesses, and he has to deal with this grief and this loss. So I feel that a big message within that bridge is for some of you to really open up, for all of us, right? To open up to our intuition, to know that there is this bridge that we can cross to this other realm, right? And this other realm, this other frequency. It is about us raising the frequencies and knowing that we have every resource to cross this bridge. The bridge wasn't out. There wasn't any, troll under the bridge that was saying, here's a toll. I had clear access to this other side, this other realm. And for some of you, because there's been so much loss, there's been grief, or you may not feel like you have the support through friendships, through family dynamics, or other people, you feel like you have a harder time accessing that, that energy of Terabithia. I mean, some of you also physically could have just watched that movie or read that book. Maybe it was a favorite when you grew up. I personally have never seen it or read that book, although I do love reading and I do love, doing the research on things. It's just like you, if you were to have a dream about an owl landing on your kitchen table having a conversation with you. You may wake up thinking, what the heck does that mean? You go on Google or you open your dream interpretation book and you dive into the energies of what does an owl mean symbolically, or what does a kitchen table mean, or what does the house piece mean in my dream. So just like with meditations, dreams, sometimes we need to depict, and that's what I did here. So I do feel a huge, powerful influence of this Terabithia energy coming in to your reading. And that's why I mentioned a little bit of that magic earlier, because sometimes we lose that magic, right? We fail to see it all around us. And that's why it's very important to open our eyes like a child has their eyes wide open of discovery and wonder, right? They don't always think so deeply. Rarely ever do they have those in-depth over analyzing things. You know, if a friend, they go to preschool and a friend takes away their toy, they're not sitting there for 5 hours wondering what the psychological effects or the spiritual reason why, you know, this happened. Now, I'm not saying, you know, don't think or don't analyze the situation or don't question it, because that's important as well. But sometimes we attach ourselves to situations that are all about flow, all about release, detachment. So I am sensing here that there could be some people who may be hanging on to specific attachments, specific outcomes of a situation. It could be a person, it could be a place, it could be a thing, it could be a pattern, a habit. So I do feel it's important to release attachments, and that's what I'm going to look into here. And your first card out is actually the Two of Swords in tarot. So it's about not being able to see that bridge right in front of you, right? It's not able to necessarily see because of that trauma, because of that grief, that fear, or that human emotion of feeling we need to be attached to things or we lose them, when the concept of loss is an illusion, right? We can't lose anything because we are creating it and we have access to it all at all times. So let's take a look here. So the cards are taking a little bit longer of a time to come out. That's okay. We'll dive in here and see what else is showing up. So, I mean, some of you, I'm getting here Tabitha, the name Tabitha, and it's interesting as well because Terabithia and Tabitha, they kind of sound the same. So that may resonate. Maybe your name is Tabitha and you love that book. It could be hand in hand here. So please take it as it resonates. All right, let's dive into the cards here. I'm also getting, for some of you, your future self wants you to know that you have already crossed over that bridge. You've already opened up. You've already got to that point and you can get there again. That's what your future self wants you to know for some of you. So if you've been struggling opening up to this new way of thinking, this new world, this new imagination, trusting your intuition, because sometimes we fail to see the signs, and we have signs and symbols here showing up. This is about spirit communication. It is about you paying attention to the coins. And it's interesting as well because this was showing up right before I entered into my meditation. I was swapping over laundry, and in the washer I had found 12 cents, and I had to chuckle because I was asking Spirit earlier what I should talk about during my reading, and I had to chuckle because it literally was 12 cents. So I may even title this reading, "This is my 12 cents worth," right? But I'm also feeling here that energy of the 12 was showing up strong during meditation, and 12 is Hanged Man energy, and it's all about seeing things from a new perspective. And that new perspective, at times it feels like we have to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice a piece of our dream or a piece of ourself. That sacrifice, again, it's an illusion because we already are whole, but we disconnect from that source, still being that source, but we disconnect to have our own human experience here, to grow, to evolve, but we're still connected to source, but it's showing up in an independent manner. All right, so some of you, your dreams are really heightened is what I'm sensing. And some of you may have actually had a dream of an owl or a kitchen table recently as well. You may be astral traveling, a lot of you, through your dreams. There is a huge shift going on in the collective. And for a lot of you, you are opening up to this spiritual side. You've gone through this spiritual transition here, and you've been going through this quest for your whole lifetime here on Earth, basically. But some of you are really digging into that knowledge piece, discovering, taking classes possibly on intuition or tarot. For others of you, this is your profession, your career. You may be a reader. You may be a healer. You may be opening up to the spiritual realm because you want to move in this direction here. I'm also getting that some of you are really paying attention to the moon, to the stars, to the planetary shifts, astrology. You may be looking into that as well. I'm also getting something here with human design, and some of you may have recently downloaded a birth chart as well, because they're showing me that calendar, and the calendar calendar has all different types of planetary alignments. So you may be discovering more about your rising sign, your moon sign, and also numbers. Numerology is showing up here as well. So pay attention. And if you don't receive something that you are questioning. So for example, if you go into meditation and want to ask your higher self, what does it mean to dream of this owl on the kitchen table, and you're not receiving the messages, don't give up. We have resources that show up, and sometimes those resources are in the form of Google. They're in the form of a book. They're in the form of a video that comes through that's, has a message that your guides are interpreting through this reading, right? We have these resources available at all times, and sometimes we feel like we have to connect directly in order to get a message, and if we don't, then we're not connected. We fail to see that we are living in this energy of Terabithia at all times. You've already crossed over that bridge or that threshold, but some of us feel like we have to do this crossing over when we already are there, right? So pay attention. Signs and symbols are really powerful at this time. Meditate more, especially for those of you that you may have that limiting belief that says, I cannot meditate. I don't have the patience to meditate. I can't sit there and do the whole Om position, right? I love to get out in nature and meditate myself. I like walking meditations, but recently I have been doing the just sit down and tune in and connect, because I've been connecting quicker and almost instantaneously. But with practice, for those of you who feel like you are not able to tune in, I challenge you to make that a habit each and every day, even if it's for 5 minutes at a time, because you're going to train your body, your mind, and your soul to start to open up more and more and more. So those of you that are seeking for answers through other sources, make sure you have in your tool belt, that spiritual tool belt that you have, make sure you have meditation as one of those slots, because I feel like that's going to help open things up and shift for you. Signs and symbols. Next, you have messages, and this is really powerful as well when it comes to anything going on in your world, whether it's your career, whether it is a struggle of tension between someone that you are close with. Okay, it could be a sibling, it could be a child, a parent, a lover, a friend. It could even be a stranger that triggered you on social media, right? You may have seen something they posted, or you may have seen some drama. Maybe you interacted with that drama, or maybe you just decided to step away. Not my circus, not my monkeys, right? I feel like this is about you understanding and becoming aware of your situation, of what you're seeing and what you're viewing around you. Take a look at it from a different perspective. Take a look at it from the other side. You know, in those movies, and they have, murder mystery or court cases, and they have that mirror that you can see through, but the other person can't. I'm getting that imagery right now. So I would love for you to step beyond that mirror and take a look at the interrogation room, we'll call it. And that interrogation room can be the whole out here of what's going on, because that can really give you insight into what's going on in here. So do pay attention to the messages. Now, I also feel that there's going to be some good news. Now, Mercury retrograde, we won't talk too much about that. If it comes up, we will. But sometimes it can bring, drear and gloom and fear. And right now I even questioned, oh my gosh, what words am I going to make up? How many times am I going to stumble? But you know what? We're just going to go with the flow, right? Because as my shirt says, it's just a phase. It's okay. It's okay to go through those periods, but not to go into it with fear. Come into it with excitement and know that if you stumble, right, you're going to get right back up there and dance. So incoming news may be showing up for some of you, where you may hear from a person that you haven't talked to for a while. You may receive an email from that job that you applied at 3 months ago and you thought that they just ghosted you. For others of you, you may have been wanting to connect with your partner on a more intimate level, and you may receive some sort of news or a confirmation of what you need to know to either strengthen the bonds or to make choices that are for your highest good. I am getting that for a lot of you. Now, Mercury is going retrograde in the sign of a Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, so that can affect relationships as well. So I do feel with relationships, it's important for you to, of course, set healthy boundaries, but communicate, because so many times we feel like other people should read our minds, right? We feel like other people should automatically know what we're feeling, what we're thinking, or what we need. And that's important to communicate, not just to a lover, a partner, a spouse, but to our children, to our family, to our friends, to our coworkers, right? It's important to have open communication and sometimes talk about the things that not everyone wants to talk about because they're difficult, they're hard, or they may feel like we're pushing against a boundary, but sometimes that's what we truly need to heal some sort of conflict, which you have showing up here. This is about finding solutions. I'm also sensing some of you may feel like the money is coming in and flowing out during this period. It's like you get the money, it's in your pocket, and then there's a hole in the pocket, right? And you dig in that hole, and you're wondering, where the heck did this money go? It's gone before it even hits my pocket, right? So some of you really need to hone in and pay attention to where money is going. I feel like you may be saving a little bit more. You may be trying to brainstorm, come up with new ideas to bring in a new income source as well. I do feel for some of you, if there has been some tension, some tug of war going on here between you and another person, you and another energy, I feel like this is a good time to really reflect and take a look at that mirror from that different angle, right? Take a look at that interrogation room, as we said, and imagine what is going on. See it from their point of view if you can, but also take a look at it from that higher perspective, that spiritual perspective, and say, okay, what is this teaching me? What am I learning? Why is this triggering me? What can I do to find a solution? What is it that I need to heal? So asking yourself those questions at this time are going to be very influential. This is about triggers, and this is interesting because it's been showing up, especially in the last few days. I feel everyone that I'm talking to, including even my own self at times, there's things that show up and they feel like a trigger. Why is this coming up? We dealt with this 5 years ago or 5 months ago, or it's something that happened that I haven't thought about for 20 years. Why now? Right? Sometimes these things hold energy within the body and they stay stagnant. They lie dormant until something shows up and may trigger us. It doesn't mean that we're on the wrong path. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't ever have a trigger. It can just be something that has deeply been impacting on your soul journey, on your human experience, right? But it doesn't mean that you are a bad person, beautiful souls. It doesn't mean that you are broken. It does not mean that you are going to feel in that lower frequency of the trigger every single day of your life for the rest of here on earth, right? I do feel like you're finding solutions and these things are coming up, and it's important to acknowledge and become aware and take a look at the bigger picture instead of suppressing and sticking it back down for it to show up at a different time. Sometimes it comes up for us to do the hard stuff, talk about those hard things, to dive in and to heal. That's called shadow work. All right, some of you may feel that there's a lot of competition. We're feeling it like a tug of war, right? The duality is so strong right now on earth because there's this spiritual war, if you will. There is this energy of conflict and trials and tribulations and one-sidedness. We see it everywhere we go. We see judgments and we see criticism and we see this way or that way, right? You have to pick a side. You have to choose. And we see this showing up on social media. We see it happening in the news. We see this programming of needing to choose and succumb. What that does is it separates us. It separates us from our oneness. It separates us from feeling like we are part of something bigger, right? From that source piece that we break off into to have these own individual experiences. And so the more that we are aware that this is what's happening, right? Because we do live on this lower frequency earth where we can manifest and we have these things, of course, but it's important for us to know that we aren't always or don't always have to be in this competitive tug of war energy. So if you're noticing this more and more around you, how can you uplift that energy? right? It's almost like seeing something negative happen. Let's say you're walking down a dark alley and you see someone lurking in the shadows, and you see a woman or a man, right, walking by, and you just feel off. Something's off. And then you see someone go up and mug a person, take their purse, take their wallet. Of course, you know, it can be very fearful, right? But what do? Do you walk away and pretend it didn't happen? What if this person is gone, and this other person that got mugged, what if they're on the ground? What if they're bleeding? What if it's life-threatening? What do? Do you walk away from that situation and pretend it didn't happen? Or do you call for help? Do you go up to the person? Do you try to stop the attack? So of course, there is you pushing through that fear. And of course, your safety is of utmost importance as well. But of course, what you do with that energy is key. And yes, safety may be important, but you can still do something from a distance. Let's say it was going on. You have your phone, you call, you make sure you stay aware. Maybe you give details of what it looks like when that attacker leaves. Maybe you help a person out. Maybe you are, you know, strong enough within your physical body to do something about it on a physical level. I'm just sensing here that a lot of you may at times bypass or walk away from a situation that may be calling for you to help, right? That could be a test. And I feel for some of you, it's important to push through that fear. I mean, that's a very extreme case, right? That's pretty deep, but I hope you're getting the drift here of, if you see something happening, call it out, or help, support, uplift, help another person. You know, stop this bullying, stop this separation, stop this energy of fear base. And it's up to us to shift this planetary frequency, to shift this collective. But we do this each and individually on an individual level, but it accumulates to that whole. So know that you being here, you are making a difference. And this has been showing up for many different readings as well. When there is conflict, what is the role that you have in it? How can you be of service? How can you shift the vibration from that fear to that love, to that support? That's showing up here. Now, some of you, now this is really deep, and it may not resonate with every one of you. If not, that's okay. Fast forward, or maybe take it and use it down the road if it ever shows up. But I've been asked sometimes, how do we forgive? Well, how do we forgive when someone has hurt us physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally? How do we forgive that person? Or how are we able to forgive a situation that is just unforgivable, right? I was just listening to this podcast the other day, and it was very powerful, and it made me stop in my tracks of what I was doing. I think I was cleaning something up, or I was just listening, but it made me really stop and pause of the power of forgiveness. And it was a story of a brother who, a woman had actually shot and killed the brother of the person, because she thought that it was in their home. I believe it was somebody had broke in, but she had really went to the wrong home. It was just this huge mix up, and she had shot and killed the brother. Well, while they were in the courtroom, before she had got sentenced, the brother of, you know, the deceased brother had said, "Can I give her a hug? Can I give her a hug?" Can you imagine the power of a hug? Can you imagine the power of that forgiveness, of that grief that that woman may have held on to, or that grief that that brother may have held on to? But he, out of everything else, said, "Can I give the woman who had killed my brother a hug?" And it just shows the power of forgiveness. Now, I'm not saying you have to go up and hug everyone who's ever hurt you, but it's just a very powerful message in the power of healing and forgiveness, because that's such a huge weight. It's such a huge anchor when we feel those energies of grief and bitterness and anger and resentment, because resentment is stemming from not forgiving a person. So when we resent a person, whether it's our partner, our parents, our children, it's because we haven't forgiven them. And so these triggers may be showing up for you, beautiful souls, for you to really truly work on some sort of forgiveness piece. And it could have to do with your family dynamics. Maybe it's forgiving your alcoholic father for choosing the bottle over you. Maybe it is your mother's narcissistic tendencies that really affected you as a child, right? But all of these people play a role in our lives. All of these people we chose to have a soul contract with, to learn, to grow, to teach us, to show us joy, to show us forgiveness, to show us pain, to show us passion. Right? When we can see it from that higher perspective, we can truly get our forgiveness on, and we can heal, and we can start to live our lives in alignment with what we want to learn and what we want to experience more of, in a sense of joy and happiness here on earth. This is about ancestral healing, and some of you are breaking patterns that have been in the family dynamic or system for generations. It could be being the first one to graduate. It could be the first one to not drink. It could be the first one to go to college, to start a business, to not be an alcoholic, to not to marry maybe the same sex, right? Or to shift up the dynamic of who you truly want to become. It is about breaking barriers, breaking ties, and doing what you want to do and what you've set out to do and break here in your family generational cycles here. I'm also getting, some of you may have been a twin, or you may be twins, or there could have been a twin who didn't make it fully to the earth plane, is what I'm sensing here as well. Now, some of you, there could be a family drama or family negativity around an inheritance or around a loss. There could be struggles regarding, well, this is mine, this is mine. Remember attachments that we talked about in the beginning here? This is all about of course, boundaries are important, but there doesn't need to be that drama involved. Especially, we see this happen all the time when a loved one crosses over. We lose touch. We may say that person was the rock, or, well, we'll never have another family function, or won't get together, or this person was the one that really brought everything together. Maybe it is up to you. Maybe that is part of your responsibility and your healing, to start a new tradition, right? And include that loved one that's crossed over as well in the new tradition, but knowing that you can also move forward in grief with them as well. Now, some of you have had troubles maybe with fertility. This could be trying to start a family. I'm getting here in vitro. Maybe that's that twin energy I was picking up on as well. I do sense here that there has been this inner conflict, this inner struggle. That could be about messages coming in. Some of you are aligning with the right people who can help you start a family, or help you uncover some things you weren't able to see. Hello, eclipse season, right? And lastly here, we do have healing. This is all about recovery, closure. It's about Reiki. Some of you are Reiki practitioners, or you may be getting into sound therapy. I'm getting Bach flower remedies, so it could be even essential oils, plant medicines, eating healthier. We do have the vegetarian vegan diet showing up here as well. This is about grief and support, and we talked about that a little bit as well, having that support, just like in that book or that movie, The Bridge to Terabithia. The young boy, his best friend crosses over the bridge to Terabithia without him. I'm not quite sure. I haven't read it or seen. I just kind of looked at the recap or the plot. But she crosses the bridge to try to get to the other side because she wants to discover, she wants to meet her friend there. And there may have been a little bit of fear to go there prior, but she's ready. Well, he is off doing something else, and he's not there when she crosses the bridge, and she falls and she drowns, right? So this young child has to navigate through loss and through friendships and through grief and through healing, right? At a very young age. So many of you have had to deal with loss or with grief or with trauma at that young age. I think he may have been maybe 11 or so in the video, but you could be any age, of course. And you may want to look into that a little bit further. It may be something that helps you out. Maybe you've read the book or you've watched the movie, even with your own children. But this is also about health. And this is a time for you to take a look, take a mental inventory, take a look again at that mirror, that double paned mirror, and look into that investigation room and take a look at your body. If you can, see yourself as an energetic body with, energetic centers called chakras, and take a look and see if there are any areas. And even right now, if you can, just take a deep breath from that solar plexus, that belly area, a big deep breath. and release. And I want you to start at your crown chakra, your head area. And I want you to just work your way down and see if there is anything that immediately catches your attention. Maybe it's a heartbeat. Perhaps it is a sharp pain in your hip. Perhaps it's your foot. Perhaps it's your back. It could be something along the lines of teeth, eyes, throat. Really pay attention and see what your body is telling you at this time. And for those of you that you're not familiar with chakras, or you're not sure what it may mean for you, that's where that piece of knowledge and research comes in. Dip into that spiritual tool belt. Get out Google, right? Get out a book. Look for a YouTube video for healing in the heart center. And we're going to dive into that heart center here for a moment as well. I'm just going to pull a card and see why that heart center is really activated. And this heart chakra is all about love, unconditional love for ourselves, for the planet, for our soul purpose. But it can also hold bitterness. It can hold resentment, anger. It's the area where we need to focus on forgiveness, right? And we just talked about all that as well. And it can be where we hold pain and where we hold loss. It's actually the portal between the lower 3 chakras and the upper 3 chakras that mixes right here in order for it to be that gateway, that bridge, almost like that bridge to Terabithia here. We can let these lower chakras of our foundation and of our environment and our conditioning, we can let that get the best of us. But if we allow that to cross over this heart chakra, then it really shifts the way we view things with our third eye, the way we communicate with our throat chakra, and the way that we see the world and trust and believe with that crown chakra. So again, that's a very interesting, way to see that bridge to Terabithia, because that heart chakra literally is that portal. So let's take a look and see what's coming in, because I am sensing, and this can be anxiety, can be depression. You may have had family members that have had breast cancer, heart attacks, strokes, heart palpitations, heart murmurs. There's just this energy here. Of course, please see the disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional. Seek one if need be. But there we have the crown chakra, which we just mentioned. When this area gets closed, or when we let all of these things pass up into this area and create those lower frequencies of bitterness and anger and forgiveness, it affects our crown chakra. And the things that you may see showing up in the physical can be migraines, can be headaches, chronic headaches, can be head injuries, brain trauma, tumors, but also it can be our belief system that we have with a higher source. Now, I don't care what that higher source is for you, but there's that divine connection. There is the sense of, when this crown chakra is affected by, all of those things that we've gone through here on earth, we tend to not believe, not trust, not think that we don't have support, that we are not one, that we are not connected to source energy. And that affects that crown in a very big way. Now, this is about flow, and look where his hand is at. It's right there on that heart chakra. We can either go backwards, right? It feels like we're spinning in circles, but backwards. Can you imagine trying to run backwards on a treadmill? I mean, people do it, but I'd probably trip. Or going forward, and you feel more of in flow. It's like trying to paddle upstream a river, right? It's so much easier to go with the flow with the paddle because it doesn't feel like resistance. Or if you're trying to swim upstream, and trust me, I've done it. I do a lot of kayaking, a lot of paddleboarding, and it's hard as heck when that current is forcing you, and it feels like you're in that same spot forever, right? And I feel for a lot of you, you have been feeling like you are in that same spot, paddling, but getting nowhere. Sometimes we just need to step back from it all, reconnect with nature, get in touch with yourself. This is the Wheel of Fortune, and this is about changing those repetitive patterns and changing that through awareness and setting out a new habit, a new pattern. That is really important, and that is the key to a lot of things, is forming a new neuroplasticity, right? We're getting into the brain here, where we can form new pathways and we can do things new ways, right? And I feel like you are taking a look at the things that you can do in a different way, and that's really going to help you out here. And some of you really need to know that even though it feels like you're taking a few steps backwards or you're staying in place, you are right on track. All right. We also have here opportunity beckons. This is the Four of Cups when we're clarifying that heart chakra energy. Now, this Four of Cups can be about feeling frustrated, feeling ungrateful, feeling like you're missing out on opportunities, feeling like you don't have that support, everything we just talked about. And then it leads into that Five of Cups if we choose to move forward. Otherwise, we can cry over spilt milk. But sometimes it doesn't feel like spilt milk. It feels like we are swallowed in the milk and we are in it, right? It's kind of like that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Is that what it is? Where they have the cereal bowl and they're in the cereal bowl with the milk. That's kind of, anyway, Four of Cups, new opportunities are calling, right? You have these new opportunities. You are able to walk through. You're already on that bridge. You've already crossed that threshold here. Now seek the truth. Seek the truth. The Seven of Swords is one of the most challenging of energies in tarot. It's the card that no one wants to see, along with that Three of Swords and Five of Swords and Ten of Swords, right? The Seven of Swords is about integrity. It is about truth. It is about being honest with yourself, because when we are not fulfilling our soul's mission and we are doing it based on someone else's desire, someone else's manipulation, someone else's pressure, that puts us in out of alignment. Therefore, we're not going to feel like we're going with the flow, right? With that Wheel of Fortune. For example, let's say, and I just gave this example in another reading. Let's say that your heart longs to travel. Maybe travel to, let's say, Europe for 5 months and just go off and explore, travel, meet new friends, kind of like Eat, Pray, Love, right? She goes off and she does her own thing. But perhaps you decide to stay and get that raise in your job and be in that relationship where there's really no love and no passion and you don't have a desire for anything, but you're just going along doing what you need to do. And I am referring to Eat, Pray, Love here. So you can choose to stay in that situation, but your heart is longing to do something differently. But when you do not listen to that heart, you feel like everything is a battle and you feel like there's a missing piece. That missing piece is about you getting truthful about bringing that piece together to connect with what your soul is really calling you to do. Now, for some of you, this is a relationship. For others of you, this is a job. This is a path that you want to head towards, that you feel such resistance, right? This can be about you getting truly and honest, brutally honest at times with what you need to do in your world to create more happiness for not just you, but for those around you as well. Sometimes we stay in situations where both people are not happy. Why the heck are they staying? Because it's their comfort zone. That's what they know. They know each other. It may feel familiar, but it sure the heck is not comfortable, is it? I don't know why they call it a comfort zone sometimes, because this is, your heart has this longing, this pull to do something new. And you see here double sevens. I've been seeing a lot of sevens lately. We are in a 7 year, 2023 breaks down in numerology. Sevens are also about spirituality, inner awareness, insight, and wisdom. So when we tap into that crown chakra, that universal life force energy that we tap into, we have access to at all times, right? But when we disconnect, that's when we live in that duality, right? The having to choose sides, the fear, the, those lower frequencies. So big message here with the sevens for you. Now let's get a few messages from the angels. We have here vegan, vegetarian diet. It says fresh organic fruits and vegetables give you a boost of high life force energy, which elevates your spiritual frequency. Yeah, some of you are paying attention to what you eat, trying to eat healthier, maybe add more smoothies. I'm also sensing some sort of, is this a protein mix? No? Okay, green. Okay, thank you. They're giving me spirulina. This could be Hawaiian spirulina. I feel a green. I think it comes in blue as well. It could be a powder. Some of you, it could be different. It may not be exactly spirulina, but if those of you that are looking for more vitality, more healing, you may want to look into spirulina. I'm sensing that for you strongly. For some of you, if you're feeling called to look into that, or if it is spiking your interest, then that is a sure sign for you. I'm also sensing cutting out caffeine, cutting out sugars, cutting out meats. If you are being called to take action and you are eating maybe a greasy burger or greasy French fries, of course, if that's what your soul is wanting, but I do feel like a lot of you, it's out of convenience. And that's why we stay in that comfort zone, because it's convenient. It's more convenient to grab that fast food or just to maybe not eat it all, skip it all together because we're too busy. This is about you paying attention to what you're putting into your body, because there is this energy frequency that's shifting and your soul really wants you to get into alignment. And what better way to do that than by listening to what our body wants, right? And that's why I had you go into that body earlier as well, because there's some big shifts happening. We also have workshops and seminars. Now, some of you may really be diving into the metaphysical, or you may even be taking a certification for your workspace, for maybe a class that you are teaching. It says attending or giving speeches is part of your spiritual path and purpose. Be open to teaching and learning. And that's the energy here of that childlike enthusiasm. The child is constantly learning about their surroundings, about themselves, about what makes them happy, what doesn't make them happy. And they are going through these changes because they are the student and the teacher, right? They're constantly in that ebb and flow. And that's why you don't necessarily see attachments. You don't see a young child brooding over a situation that happened 5 hours ago. They can leave a tantrum in 5 seconds, right? Because this is about flowing in and out of those stages between that student, between that teacher flow. Some of you are ready to teach and you need to know that. That's a message from your future self or your higher self even, is that you are a natural born leader and that your words, your communication matters. We need that here on earth. So for those of you that have this calling here, or you are resonating with this energy of teaching in whatever form that may look like, lead with integrity. Be truthful and honest about what you need to do to make that happen, and then take an action step towards it, because you have the law of attraction here as well. Relationships and activities that you once enjoyed are now changing as you become more sensitive and aware of the energies. Yes, we talked about all of this. We talked about relationships kind of coming to the forefront at this time, whether you're strengthening them or you're getting honest with yourself about what you truly need, desire, and want, whether that shows up through the form of communication and hopefully bridging that gap here. We're going to keep using that bridge to Terabithia type of energy, because I feel like that really is the dominating energy here, that magic, that joy, that wish fulfillment. What is it that you want to create? Are you being honest with yourself? That law of attraction is happening. Whatever you see in that interrogation room on the other side, right? It's a manifestation of what's going on in here. So when we get into alignment, when we are living with our purpose, with our passion, of course, there are certain things that we need to do on the side, take our responsibility. I worked in the corporate world for some time as well. And even though I knew that there was another piece out there, I actively made sure that my energy was as high as it could, so I could go in that direction, even though I needed to learn these stepping stones. And sometimes we forget that. If it wasn't for the stepping stones that I learned in the corporate world, I probably would have went out here with none of those skills. So sometimes we need to go through these, and we realize at the end of it, yes, I went through all that, and that was a part, and you can't skip these phases. It would be like trying to climb up a ladder and you only having the bottom step and the top step. What are you going to try to do? Jump? Unless you have superpowers, which we all do, right? But if you have a specific power of flying to that top one, awesome, good for you, but most of us don't, right? So I feel like those steps on the path to where you want to truly become, they're just as important as, you know, that destination as well. So stay in alignment with the law of attraction here. And lastly, we have twin flame. Now, some of you have been dealing with a twin flame. If you're not familiar with what a twin flame is, please seek that out. Please look that up here. Because twin flames, a lot of times we feel like we're in a twin flame union, but we're not. It can be a false twin flame. And this word gets thrown out there so often. I should do a video on it at some point as well, but it says the answer to your question involves a spiritually based romantic relationship. And a lot of times these can be very difficult, very challenging, but I find nowadays a lot of people look at any sort of struggle or toxicity in a relationship and label it twin flame. But some of you, you know that you are in a twin flame union. And for those of you that know you have met your twin flame or you are in a union, you may see a complete overhaul or a complete shift in this relationship at this time. So your future self wants you to know to pay attention to this law of attraction. Pay attention because there's healing, there's signs, there's symbols, there's been conflict, there's family dynamics, inner childhood wounding that's being mirrored back to you to take a look at this time for you to do the healing. Very powerful. Now, last but not least here, beautiful souls, thanks for bearing with me. Very interesting reading today. I'm just going along with the flow. You have the Six of Cups, doesn't surprise me. That is that magic, right? That childlike enthusiasm as well. It's travel, it's wonder, it is the good old days. A lot of times readers, and I've even, if I feel this intuitively, I'll mention it as well, but sometimes people say it's the blast from the past, an ex coming back in, right? Especially around retrograde. I'm not feeling that during this reading here. I mean, some of you, because you do have twin flame, yes, there could be a twin flame that's coming in, but I feel that this Six of Cups is about that bridge to Terabithia type of energy here. It's about magic, opening yourself up to new ways of doing, new ways of thinking, kindness, right? Like I mentioned earlier, what would you do in that situation where you've seen an act being done? How would you speak up? Even if there's a lot of fear, and I forget what it was that I was reading the other day or listening to. I'm constantly stimulating my mind with things, and it was this, gosh, I forget what it was, but it was a test almost from the universe where there was a situation where there was an animal that had ran into the road, and unfortunately this dog had got hit. And the woman, she always knew that she had healing abilities and she had Reiki, and she knew that she'd been told intuitively and by her higher self to go up to that dog and place her hands on that dog. But she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it out of fear of judgment, of criticism, of what the heck are these people going to think if I go up and start doing my healing work, right? So there's this energy here of fear that we tend to lock ourselves. Now, no judgment. It doesn't mean that what that lady did was right or wrong. It was basically a test from the universe saying, okay, do you trust yourself to make these decisions that are in your highest good, right? And in this case, she wanted to. She knew all along that she was a healer and she was being guided to take these steps, but she wasn't ready, or she let the fears, or she let that criticism, that control, that conflict energy that we see going on here, that tug of war, go back and forth. And she chose in that moment to not act on that intuitive pull to go over and heal the dog. And it was a very enlightening moment, because we do that every day in our lives, right? We do that where our intuition is constantly guiding and telling us to do these things, right? To be on track, but that ego comes in. And when I say ego, we can have healthy egos as well. So many people fear that word ego, but sometimes we let the ego come in and we succumb to fear, because then that fear takes over and it doesn't create a healthy, safe ego for us any longer. So for some of you, this is about coming back to compassion, back to kindness, back to truth. The Six of Cups is about nostalgia. It is about a second chance to heal from childhood wounding, to bring in new friendships, to deal with situations that have been difficult, but to forgive, right? And you can see here that there's a teacher and there's a student, and she's handing him one of these cups, one of the 6 cups up there on the wall. And I feel like you are being handed this cup as well. And this cup is saying here, what is it that you want to fill your cup with at this time? Because the sky's the limit. You have this bridge here. You can head into Terabithia. What does Terabithia look like for you? Because that's your magic wonderland. What kind of magic do you want to create, beautiful souls? High Priestess. This is intuition, everything we've been talking about here. This is about you trusting those signs, those synchronicities. This is about you gaining the insight from the inner wisdom, silencing those fears, silencing those wounds, or that voice within the head that says you can't go over and heal that dog. You're not good enough. You're going to be judged. You're going to be criticized. Who are you to do that, right? It's about silencing those so we can truly, truly listen to our intuitive nudges and to trust, there's that crown chakra, to trust that we are a piece of divine source, because we are. We have 3 of Wands and 2 of Swords. And we talked about the 2 of Swords a little when it first came out. And the 2 of Swords is the head in one direction and the heart in the other. It's being at a crossroads. And you can see here that she's wearing this blindfold. And she's putting her swords up in the air and she's trying to do this fight. And another interesting thing is, I was just listening again to another podcast. I'm a podcast junkie, constantly listening to different spiritual healings. However, the one lady, I think it was on the Gaia channel actually, the one lady had lost her sense of hearing, and it shut her off. She was an extrovert and she really loved to be out in the world and loved to experience through all of her senses. And there was a hereditary disease that came in, dis-ease, right? And it created this segregation from the external world, where she was now not able to necessarily fit in with that external world, but she had to use her other senses, and she honed in on her clairsentience, right? That feeling, the gut feelings, or just the knowing. And it really allowed her to tune into her intuition more. But we don't realize, because we have these visual senses, you know, seeing and hearing and things of that nature, that we don't always trust the feelings. And that's why it's important for you to feel into your body, feel what the heart is telling you. We have these emotions for a reason, right? We have these feelings for a reason, and it's important for us to trust in them, because we tend to use the head and we tend to use logic. We need both of them. They're both vital. The brain wouldn't be able to survive without the heart, and vice versa. But this is about us just being able to use our senses, all of them, to the best of our ability, but most importantly, to dive into that intuitive piece. Because that's when you're going to have the breakthrough, the 3 of Wands. That's when you'll be able to spread your wings and leap off of the perch. You see here that he's looking a little bit disheveled. There's a lot going on. His whole desk is full of magical potions and concoctions. He has the books behind him, but he's ready to take off. But he feels like he may be missing out a little bit. So where's that missing piece? So many times we look externally for that missing piece when it's right here. You've already crossed that threshold. What does Terabithia look like for you? So really powerful energies today. I hope this resonates. I hope this helps you out. A little bit different than our usual collective readings, a tiny bit different, a little more magic in this reading as well. If this resonates with you, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. It certainly does help get the divine channel messages out there to those that need it most. And also it helps me understand that you are tuning in and that these messages are for you as well. So again, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. Feel free to subscribe and hit that bell if you haven't already. And feel free to drop a comment in the box below. Let me know what stood out the most for you. Let me know what's resonating with you as well. And let me know, be vulnerable, get in the comments. What is the last trigger you had? I would love to hear it. And then I want you to look at other triggers that other commenters may leave as well. And I want you to say one nice thing or one soulful. We'll say soulful, okay? Because that soul is full of love and compassion and kindness, right? So I want you to find something soulful that you can say to another being, whether it's on this post or whether it's someplace else. Spread that love, spread that frequency. That is what you are here on earth to do. Thank you again so much for tuning in, beautiful souls. Lots of love.